all to please stand. Blessed be God, the source of life, the spirit of wonder, the root of faith, the flowering of love, the abundance of our hope. As is comfortable to you in your spirituality, I invite you to join in prayer. Creating God, you surround us with the marvels of this world, and you give us the ability to explore the mysteries of creation. You fill the earth with the spirit of wisdom, and you inspire us to search for the truth. You have sent us prophets and teachers as witnesses to your liberating justice. You have come among us to teach us by word and example how to love one another. Help us in this new academic year to enjoy our learning together and enable us to take delight in exploration. Give us patience in our studies and strength to meet new challenges. We pray all of this through the inspiration of your Spirit. Amen.
Good morning, and welcome to the opening convocation of 2024 at Luther College. A convocation is a gathering of people, and it is a way for us to sing a new song together at the opening of the academic year. New students, new faculty, new staff, you are now a part of the fabric of this institution. How the fabric looks is different from how it looked last year because you are woven into us. Returning students, faculty and staff, community members, show those who have joined us through your welcome, your challenge, and your grace what the strength of the Luther Blue Thread can mean as we live out our shared values of excellence, inclusivity, curiosity, sustainability, and community. To our guest, Oscar Hokeah, thank you for coming to this beautiful place where river, woodland, and prairie meet, and for sharing your compelling story. It is our honor to greet you, and it is my privilege as president of Luther College to welcome all who are gathered here today to open this new year with clear eyes, with courage, and hope for the work we will do together.
You may be seated. The land on which Luther College stands has been home to the Iowa, Sac, Fox, and the Dakota people and their ancestors. As part of the neutral ground created by the U.S. government to control the movement, lives, and livelihood of Native peoples, this land was home to the Ho-Chunk, formerly known as the Winnebago, during their forced displacement from Wisconsin. The dispossession of the Iowa, Sac, Fox, and Dakota and the forced migration of the Ho-Chunk people was motivated by the interests of settlers such as those who founded this town and this college. The Ho-Chunk, during their residence here, addressed the land as grandmother. The tribe's orator, Wakan Dakora, believed his people were extended the blessing of this place by the Great Spirit, saying, "We did not make it, nor could we make it so pretty and fair a land." We honor this story and the ongoing connection of the descendants of the early residents of this place. We honor and care for the land, water, and resources as these residents did, like a loved and a loving elder to whom we owe our life.
Connected to our place and to our past, we, the students, staff, and faculty of Luther College, look with hope to our future. We stand together where faith meets learning, as a college both rooted in the church and expansively open in our exploration of the world and of ourselves. We come together around shared values that shape us and inspire us, values of excellence, inclusivity, curiosity, sustainability, and community. Together, let us celebrate the gifts of this community and reaffirm the heart of our shared mission.
We are a community of reformation. We affirm the liberating power in learning. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom.
We are a community of belonging.
We embrace diversity and challenge one another to learn in community.
We discern our callings.
To serve with distinction for the common good.
What does the Lord require of you?
To do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God.
We are a community of faith.
We are deeply rooted in an understanding of grace and freedom.
We are boldly open in worship, study, and service.
We seek truth, examine our faith, and care for God's people and creation.
Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you.
Let the nations be glad and sing for joy.
We are a community of learning.
We move beyond our immediate interests and our present knowledge
We discipline minds and develop whole persons. Make me to know your ways, O Lord.
We are a community of intersection. We practice joyful stewardship of the resources that surround us. Do not be conformed to this world.
At the opening of this new academic year, we celebrate that we are a community of teaching and learning where each of us, student, faculty, and staff, can continue to grow in knowledge, faith, and sense of purpose. Students, both new and returning, I ask you now, will you commit yourself to the role of learner, approaching both your work and your play with an open mind and heart? Will you be diligent in your studies and also diligent in your care of self? Will you support one another as you discover new things about this world and your place in it? If so, please respond, we will. Faculty and staff, I ask you now, will you commit yourself to your vocations as teachers, leaders, and caregivers of our students and our campus alike? Will you be thoughtful and honest in your work for the building up of the common good? Will you aspire to learn from these students even as they learn from you? If so, please respond, we will. Having promised each other these things in the presence of the entire Luther College community, let us join in welcoming and celebrating our students who are beginning this new academic year.
Grounded and global. This is a phrase that likely sounds familiar to some of you. It's a phrase that's been used as Luther grapples with a future in which we strive to be rooted in this place and its attending geography, culture, and history, while we simultaneously work to be global in our community, our education, and our impact. Oscar Hokeah's writing exemplifies what it means to be both grounded and global. He is a regionalist writer who writes what he knows. He writes of the Cherokee and Kiowa people, of Mexicans and Mexican Americans. He himself is a citizen of Cherokee Nation and the Kiowa tribe of Oklahoma with Mexican heritage. He writes of two communities in Oklahoma, Tahlequah and Lawton. Hokeah lives in Tahlequah. His stories are of these specific communities, in these specific places. But they speak to larger issues of intertribalism, transnationalism, and multiculturalism, and to universal aspects of the human condition, of heartbreak and loss, humor and tradition, hope and legacy. He shows us the possibilities and pitfalls of being rooted while reaching for one another. It's my pleasure to welcome him to the podium today as our convocation speaker.
Siyo Tohij, I'm very grateful to be here and to be able to speak with you today, and I'm very grateful that Luther College has chosen my debut novel, Calling for a Blanket Dance, to start off an academic year that is focused on Indigenous peoples and histories and cultures, communities. So I think it's a great learning opportunity, and I commend Luther College for taking on that task and educating your students in a history and communities that a lot of people in the United States don't get an in-depth look at. So I think it's a very important and a unique experience for your students, and I'm very grateful for that. And so I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about why education has been important for me. But first, before I start that, I just want to, say how beautiful this area is. This is my first time to Iowa, and came in late Tuesday evening. And so yesterday morning, I got a lot of downtime to be able to spend some time in your community, and ended up driving around and over at, I think it's called Twin Springs Park, and just wanted a little solitude, out in a natural environment. And so I saw there's that stream that kind of runs through right there. And for me, it's always important, if I can get the opportunity when I come to a new place, to touch the water, the moving water right there. It's kind of like a blessing. And so I did that and offered a little tobacco to the land. And while I was there, I decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and kind of rehearse what I'm going to say here today. So I was out there essentially just talking to myself, and I was just, talking about the things I'm going to say to everyone here today. And so as I'm out there talking, really loud, just trying to get it, get a good rhythm there, and a gentleman comes walking by behind me, and he gives me one of those sideways looks, like, is this like a crazy guy? He kind of started walking a little fast after that. But no, it was really nice to be out in the environment and to get a good sense of Decorah in the area. You have a beautiful place, and it does remind me a great deal of where I'm from, which is Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And from what I understand, Iowa gets the same kind of treatment that Oklahoma does, where whenever people say Oklahoma, mention Oklahoma, they immediately think of flat, plain, southern plains. And so 2/3 of Oklahoma is southern plains, but there's this third that's east of Oklahoma that turns into the Ozark Hills. And so the landscape here reminds me of those type of hills, very wooded, lots of water, rivers, streams. We have massive lakes as well. But most people don't conjure up that image when they think of Oklahoma. So very much felt like home in a lot of ways being here. So with regard to my personal education, so the last grade that I completed was the 6th grade. I dropped out when I was 13 years old. And one of the things that happens on reservations and on the Cherokee Reservation, I was living in Tahlequah, Oklahoma at the time, is that whenever a child in the system just kind of vanishes, no one does any kind of active efforts to try to find out, hey, what's going on with this kid? They just kind of expect around 7th and 8th grade. I went to like 2 weeks of school in the 7th grade and just stopped. And so no one really sought out like, oh, let's find this kid and see what's going on. I just kind of vanished. And in the middle school age range is a vulnerable time period for all of us, for everyone. And so we have a lot of dropouts in the 7th and 8th grade. And I was one of those youth. And so my mom did, pull the resources that she had. And so what she did is she sent me to live with my Kiowa side. So my mom is full-blood Native American. She's half Kiowa, half Cherokee. I grew up very much like in the debut novel where the main character is moving back and forth between Kiowa and Cherokee communities. That's how I grew up. And so she sent me to live with the Kiowa side of my family in Lawton, Oklahoma, which is, like I said, which is on the southern plains. And so my relatives in Lawton are Kiowa and Comanche mix, but my uncles ran roofing teams. And so at 14 years old, I started to roof. That was, if I wasn't going to go to school, then you have to work. That was the sentiment in the family. And so I was out there with my cousins one of them was my same age, and so we were both 14 years old, working on roofs, both in a similar situation. Both of us were dropouts. But many of my family members, if they didn't drop out in middle school, they probably dropped out in high school. So it was pretty common in my family for that to happen. So worked hard labor jobs like that, roofing from 14 to 18, but I also worked in plant nurseries. So in the Ozark Hills of Oklahoma, we have these massive plant nurseries. So where you might buy shrubs and flowers, whatnot, from like Walmart or Lowe's, Home Depot, those kinds of places. Those plants are grown on these big plant nurseries where the greenhouses stretch over hill over hill. So Greenleaf Nursery has like 600 acres of land of plants, and so many of us, many Cherokees and Creeks work on those plant nurseries, but also immigrants from Mexico work there as well. And so that's where we have an intersection of culture and community is in these work environments. And in fact, that's how my mother met my father. So my father immigrated from Aldama, Chihuahua when he was 14 years old to work the peanut and cotton fields on the Southern Plains. So on the Southern Plains, we have these massive farmlands with row after row of peanuts. And so my father followed his older cousins up to Oklahoma so he could work those fields, but it's seasonal work. So he'd be on the Southern Plains during a certain time of the year, but then he'd go to Northeast Oklahoma to work the plant nurseries at other times of the year, and then he'd go back and forth. And so he was hitchhiking to work one day, and my mom was driving by and picked him up and took him to work. And I don't recommend you finding the love of your life picking up hitchhikers these days, but back then it was common. It was pretty common to hitchhike from one place to another. Even when I was like 15, 16 years old in our community, it was really common to hitchhike into town. Because I grew up in a set of Indian homes that was outside of Tahlequah, like maybe 5 miles or so. But to get into town, I would sometimes hitchhike there. So that's an intersection of where natives and immigrants from Mexico intersect, and so that's a part of Oklahoma history that we don't hear a lot about, even inside of Native culture, Native communities. I work for Cherokee Nation. I work for Indian Child Welfare. I've been working in the social services field for 20 years, and I can say with confidence that intersection between Native and Latin immigrants, that intersection is the fastest growing population in our community. And so I think that while this book and some of the writing of indigenous authors who are also half Hispanic are starting to talk about it now, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think we're going to probably start seeing more and more of that kind of literature coming out. So whenever I was in Lawton and I would work on the roofing team, it's all Kiowa and Comanche. So it was all my relatives that were working that. And so my family not only does roofs for like people in the community of Lawton, like homeowners and whatnot, but also does work for Kiowa tribe and the Comanche Nation. So working within the tribe itself, but outside of the tribe also. And so whenever I was younger, that was kind of my path. Was my trajectory was just to continue to work that kind of job. But I think the thing that did make me different from my cousins and many of my peers was that I was a reader. I liked to read. So when I was 14 years old, I started reading fantasy novels. So there was a series called Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms. And I think now that, Wheel of Time is on a series on Prime, but before Wheel of Time was on TV, it was a book series. So I would read books like that, and I also read horror. So I read Stephen King, Dean Koontz, Anne Rice, Clive Barker. And so after starting to read at that age, I felt inspired, like I could do that. Like I can use words to create worlds like that. And so I started writing this kind of horror, dark fantasy, native-centric fiction. And I did that into my 20s. And so because I read avidly, oftentimes my friends or my family members would ask me, like I'd be out roofing, and they would say, well, why are you doing this? Why are you with us? Why are you here? Because they could see something in me that was different. They could see that. They would tell me, you need to go to school. And I was around 18 years old whenever one of my older cousins was putting together a job for putting together a roofing team for a job, and he was calling up the cousins and letting them know when it was going to happen and all the details. And then he got to me and he said, I'm not gonna put you on this job. He said, you don't need to be out here with us. You need to go to school. And he was trying to send me a message. He was trying to tell me that there was something different about me, that I could take a different route that they were taking. But at that time, I just didn't have a lot of confidence. And maybe some of you might feel similar in not having a lot of confidence as you first step in to your own education. But it took me a while to kind of get there. So fast forward another 5-6 years, I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I just wanted to get out of Oklahoma. I was wanting to get off the res and get away from a lot of the elements that were playing out there. So in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I started working with a company called Intermountain Youth Centers. It was a group home. And in this group home, it was all native, so Navajo, Pueblo, Apache youth. And so as I'm working there, my coworkers were also native, and they went to this school called the Institute of American Indian Arts. So when I moved to Santa Fe, I didn't know that college existed. I just moved to get out of Oklahoma. And so I would show them my writing. I was like, yeah, I'm a writer, and I write this kind of fiction. And they would read it, and there were students there, so they would say, that there's a creative writing program right here in Santa Fe, and it's a native school. And they said, you need to apply. You need to start going to school there. And so that was in 2004. I didn't have the confidence to even try until 2006. So it took me a couple more years after that. And so I didn't start college until I was 29 years old, because I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't think that was, the type of person that I could be, just because of the type of life that I had lived. And so in 2006, I applied, and I'm like, okay, well, at that point, I'm in my late 20s. I have 3 kids. I have a full-time job, and I'm going to go to school full-time. And I'm like, well, I'm going to give it a try. Let's see what happens. So in that first semester, at the end of that first semester, I get a 4.0. I get straight A's, and it just completely blows my mind. Like, how did I do that? And it inspired me to keep going. Like, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to keep going until I get an associate. So I got the associates, and then inspired to keep going again until I got the bachelor's degree. So 3 years later, I get a bachelor's degree, BFA in creative writing with a minor in Indigenous Liberal Studies. And then after that, many of my peers were applying for grad school and going on to get master's degrees. And because I had that success of getting a bachelor's, that I decided I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to, I don't know if I'll get in, but I'm going to apply. And so I get into the University of Oklahoma, and I end up with a master's degree in English with the concentration Native American fiction, Native American literature. So if you had asked me when I was 20, 19, if you had told me that I was going to have a master's degree one day, and you're going to write a book, and it's going to get published, and it's going to do all these things, there was no way I was going to believe you, And one of the reasons why I was successful in that educational environment, and this goes back to the debut novel, Calling for a Blanket Dance. And in that second to last chapter, there's a description of a blanket dance ritual. So the entire novel is structured on this blanket dance ritual. And we had a discussion yesterday evening with students, and I talked about it a little bit there, where that, the first chapter is narrated by grandma, the grandpa, aunties, uncles, cousins, until the last chapter, the main character speaks for himself. But in a sense that every character is stepping up and offering something to the main character. Like grandma saying, this is what I have for you, grandson. Grandfather's, this is what I have for you, grandson. So that he can make the changes, so he can develop and make the choice for himself. But in a lot of ways, so like when I was at I had found mentors. I had found faculty other students that, that were a resource for me. So like the head of creative writing, Evelina Zuni-Lucero, she spent a lot of one-on-one time with me. The head of Indigenous Liberal Studies, Stephen Wall, he spent a lot of time with me, where I would just sit in his office and we would just talk, and sometimes just about random things. And similarly, when I went to the University of Oklahoma, when I first got there, Dr. Tim Murphy, he spent a lot of one-on-one time in that first semester, because I was super nervous about being able to catch up with the academic language. You know, like when I first sat in at a master's degree class, in Tim Murphy's class, I remember sitting through the whole, like it was like an hour and a half, whatever it was, and I didn't understand a single thing that Tim Murphy said, and walked out feeling like I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, just because the academic language was a different. It's a whole entire language in itself. And it was that semester when Tim Murphy sat with me a great deal and almost like hand-walked me to develop myself. And so by the end of that semester, I could understand everything that was said, and I could start participating in the conversation. And then also after that, there was a Dr. Gary Hobson who did a lot of the Native fiction, Native literature classes, and he also took me under his wing as well. And so in essence, what that was, it was something of a blanket dance. There were individuals in the community that were surrounding me and helping me and guiding me so that I was successful. And so that's what you have here at Luther College. And I'm excited for your future, because 10 years from now, you're going to look back and you're going to be in awe about how much you have accomplished. And I would just encourage you to reach out and connect with people on campus, connect with other students, but also connect with faculty members as well, who can help guide you and steer you and support you whenever you're not feeling confident, and so that you can be successful as well. But I'm going to leave you with that, and I just want to say thank you again for allowing me to present my debut novel and giving me a chance to speak with you today. And I'm very excited about your future. Thank you.
invite you to stand for our closing blessing and our closing hymn. And now, may the God of steadfastness and encouragement grant you to live in harmony with one another. The God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that you may abound in hope and wonder. And the God of all grace bless you now and forever. Amen. Go now in peace to love, to learn, and to serve. Soli Deo Gloria, thanks be to God.